Okay, it's now 4 o'clock. We'll call the joint meeting of the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors and the Finance Committee to order on Monday, March 5th, 2018, 4 p.m., Main Conference Room, County Administration Building, 1 Center Street, Chatham, Virginia. Roll call, Ms. Flip.
Do you want me to do the committee or just the whole board in general?
I guess it'll be the whole board.
Okay. Mr. Warren?
Here.
Mr. Blackstock?
Present.
Mr. Scare?
Here.
Mr. Farmer?
Here.
We'll note that Mr. Barber, Mr. Davis, and Mr. Miller are not present yet.
Okay. So we can't add any items to the agenda. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the agenda? All in favor, raise your right hands. We're going to skip approval of the minutes. We had a little computer glitch. Please note that Dr. Miller has just entered the meeting. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Yes, sir. We're down to new business, discussion of proposed budget for FY2019 budget. I'm going to now turn it over to Mr. Blackstock, Chairman of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start by welcoming. We have a full house here today, and obviously we have a great deal of interest in the future of our county and a wonderful turnout. I've also talked to Mr. Barber, called me, and he will be a few minutes late. He's busy with his own personal business and also trying to do a little farming too before he gets over here. I want to start out with we have a lot of 4 o'clock meetings, and that is kind of early for somebody that's running a business. We have to take a look at that. I want to start out by, I've been thinking about, this is a budget that's been put together by staff and Mr. Smiddleman. The recommendation is very thorough, and a lot of work has been gone into it. But it's just that, a recommendation. And I want to read to the board something that I thought about was very important before we get started today. It's in our bylaws. It's in Article 1, Section 1.4. The board shall have both administrative and legislative responsibilities, some of which shall be discharged in their role as governing body, and some of which they are derived as an administrative political subdivision of the Commonwealth. The powers and the duties of the board shall include, but not be limited to, the following: preparation and adoption of the county budget, levying of taxes, appropriating funds, constructing and maintaining county buildings, making and enforcing ordinances, providing for the general health, safety, and welfare of the public, and generally exercising all other powers and functions normally attributed to government and permitted by the laws of the Commonwealth. It's a lot. I think as we move forward today, we need to probably keep that in the back of our minds. With that said, we'll go into item 6A, discussion of proposed FY2019 budget. Mr. Smith.
Well, it's your desire we can do 1 or 2 things. I have a very, very short outline of the items that are included in the proposed tax increase that we could go over very, very quickly before you hear from constitutional officers, or we can end with that, whichever you prefer.
Let's start with that.
Okay. Copies so the board can take some notes. We'll just take one packet, please.
you just hit the right
Right
there
there.
or this one.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Blackstock and the Finance Committee, as well as the supervisors that are in attendance. Just want to give a very, very short recap of the items that are included in the proposal for additional revenue, i.e. the pieces of the budget that require additional taxes. This is a summary sheet that really shows each item that's been added to the base budget and the approximate pennies that are associated with each one. You can see at the very top that we started this year, or started this budget, with a flat status quo representation of general government. After that, we reduced government spending by about $735,000 as permanent cost reductions, which got us to a proposed tax rate of 58 cents. So from that 58 cents, which is status quo general government minus $735,000 of efficiencies, we've added 2.5 pennies for fire and rescue services, which you see on this right column. So 2.5 pennies for fire and rescue enhancements, or about $1 million. About $1 million, or a little less, and this is the highest of a 4-year average for the landfill. We need about 2 pennies dedicated to landfill improvements, as well as putting away money so that we can open and close new garbage cells in the next 4 years. We have added 4 pennies for operation costs of the school system, which equals $1.6 million. We've added 2.5 pennies, or $1 million, for economic development. We have an economic development fund that's currently in the red to about $185,000 roughly, and we need to make that fund whole and set aside money for additional projects. We've experienced a lot of increases in the Children's Services Act, and we're anticipating about a penny's worth of increases next year in those costs. We also recommend a small about a half penny, or 0.6 of a cent, to put away $250,000 a year for the next reassessment. It costs about $1 million to do that project. We've recommended putting away $250,000 a year for 4 years. And then finally, we are adding just under a penny, or 0.08 or 0.8 of a penny, to pay for the indebtedness that we took on this year to fix the courthouse chiller, to make good on the economic development incentive obligation, to fix landfill equipment, and to purchase the Mount Herman Library, which we were previously leasing. And by purchasing that, we'll be saving the county a good bit of money. Okay, next slide. So going into today, just realizing that the focus of the committee to some extent is how do we cut this proposal back. I'm going to start with the base budget and then go through our focus areas. The base budget, the areas that basically are available for reduction, because this, and for those department heads and others in the room, the general fund of Pittsylvania County budget is an extremely bare bones operation, and it's been cut back and back and back over a series of years, so there's not a lot left. Without wholesale cuts, to cut any more in the base budget, and the board knows I've mentioned this over the weekend, it gets down to starting to discontinue services. Discontinue recreation department would be about a penny off the tax rate. Discontinuing the library system would be about 2.5 pennies. Discontinuing the school resource officers, which no one wants to do at this point, certainly, would take at least a penny off the tax rate. But it would be wholesale changes to make changes in the base budget. But there are 4 things that I would call low-hanging fruit. To provide a cost of living adjustment for all employees is about $300,000. That's proposed in this budget at 1.8%. $155,000 to implement phase 2 of the county's pay and classification study, which includes the Treasurer's Office and Commissioner's Office. $77,000. This is one of our big new initiatives in this budget, is to reopen Wayside Park and to make that an attractive destination. And then the third, this is something I just came up with because I've had some offline conversations with some of you board members, is what if we laid off every employee for 2 weeks, did a 2-week furlough? Unfortunately, and that's a lot of impact for an employee to not work for 2 weeks, it only saves the county about $300,000. That does not include public safety personnel. Next. For the school division, we have put in $1.6 million in the FY19 budget and recommend appropriation of $600,000 additional in the out years utilizing the Mountain Valley Pipeline proceeds. Okay. Fire and rescue, we're changing a lot of things, mostly the way the fire and rescue folks get paid. We're trying to start at a base level that is a 25% increase on a historical figure. So we want to make sure that at a minimum every department receives more money than they are used to receiving. And then for those that achieve an 85% response rate, we want to put a 10% kicker on top of that. So the funding of our agencies is greatly improved as part of this budget. We're also adding the only increase of a position in this budget, even though there are 10 being removed. There is a new position for fire and rescue training and many other things for fire and rescue. But in general, you're looking at about $1 million in perpetuity of additional funding for our fire and rescue services. Next slide is economic development. We've had a lot of success. We have a lot of success coming, but we're out of dry powder, as I like to say. We need to replenish our economic development fund, and we're recommending that we set aside $1 million in 2019, $750,000 in 20 and 21, and $500,000 in 2022, which is about a 2.5-cent tax increase, declining as it goes forward. Our big exposures at the landfill, we are currently renting equipment to get by right now. We are going to be looking, we will be shortly, sending some pieces of equipment into Caterpillar for complete rebuild back to factory warranty status. We'll also be purchasing a piece of equipment. Most importantly, we are setting aside money for the major cost, which is about $4.5 million to open and close the next cell at the landfill, and that has to be done in about 3 to 4 years. So we're going to start saving up for that. And we're also trying to build 2 more compactor sites. For those of you that live near compactor sites, it's quite a luxury compared to having the green boxes strode around. We're going to try to build 2 more up in the Collins, Gretna, Bannister general vicinity. So all that combined, you're looking at about 2.5 cents in the first year, declining to an average of 2 cents in the 3 out years of this budget. Next. But with all those things that we are paying for, there's a lot of things that we're not. We have a big decision to make in the next few months about the future of our courthouse and jail. There's nothing in this budget for those 2 items other than the commissioning of the community-based corrections plan so that we can officially begin to make decisions on inmate housing. Blair School, as many of you know, is in very, very difficult shape and will cost $400,000 just to tear down. But something's going to have to happen there very soon. The Armory is ripe for new occupation. However, anything that goes in there that requires air conditioning at a minimum, but any kind of general public comings and goings, there's going to be a good amount of investment needed there, and that needs to be done in the next 12 months, but there's nothing in this budget to pay for that. Finally, we do know we have an exposure at the E911 Center. It's not big enough, it's in the wrong place, it's flood prone, and we believe that we're going to have to do something with that in the next few years, and there's nothing in this budget to cover that. And of course we know at some point in the CIP, there's about $43 to $45 million requested for school facility improvements. Next slide. Nothing? Is that it? Oh, there it is. So there are ways that we can offset this tax rate, this proposed tax rate of 11 cents. Unfortunately, none of them are in this year or in FY19. But we do believe in FY20 and FY21 there are some very positive things that could happen with the landfill. that could realize a tremendous revenue stream for the county that can reduce our tax rate. We've also recommended that the board consider a conversation about changing our land use program. We defer about $3.3 million of revenue annually to that agriculture deferment program, and we think there can be some slight tweaks in that will preserve the integrity of the beneficiaries, i.e. the productive farms, and still allow some increased revenue to the county. And then finally, Ms. Hammock's office is doing annual business audits that has realized additional revenue of $435,000 in the last 3 years. The question is, could we increase those efforts? Is there other money out there? It's not a conversation we've had, but it is a revenue stream that the county has been benefiting from recently. And that's all I have for this brief presentation, Mr. Blackstock.
Okay. Any questions from the committee or other board members? Comments?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll move on to presentations by our constitutional officers. First up is our clerk of court, Mark Scarce. Mr. Scarce.
Is it saying here?
Yes,
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests of the board. I just wanted to come by and let you know that we are still across the road. We have found a couple of ways to keep money here in the county versus sending it to Richmond. We've got into the county phone system. We've cut our phone bills in half. When I first took office, we were paying anywhere from $430 to $500 a month phone bill. We're down to about $215 a month, so we're saving money there. We've got the debit card machines in, and we're collecting money. Just one day last week, we took in like $23,000. That deed room does a great amount of work. Those 10 ladies in that office, they come to work every day, and they give you 100% every day. And just don't forget those ladies over there. One thing that I thought about standing here is, when you run for office, as you all have, everybody that's never ran for office can tell you how to run for office. And I experienced that. But the best advice for Sheriff Plaster, just be yourself. And that's what just be yourself, put yourself in our position, and these folks that come to work every day. I've learned, growing up, you didn't discuss religion or politics. Here lately, I've learned not to discuss salaries and courthouse security. Thank you for your time. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Scarce, for what you and your team do. You've done good work. Been some significant changes in the courthouse. I think probably most of the people in this room know, but after implementing security over there, some things are a lot different. But with a few small bumps, I think it's went well. All right, next up is Sheriff Taylor. And by the way, board members, in your packet, you have a copy of each constitutional officer's budget in order. So after the first page there, and that's going to be the sheriff. Sheriff Taylor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You got a foot?
He did.
While they're getting started, I just want to say that Mr. Chairman and the members of the Finance Committee, the board members, the staff that's present here today, and to my extended work family, who's got my 12, 3, 6, and 9, I hope. I appreciate the opportunity to be here before you. I also want to take just a minute to say this. I want to thank Mr. Smithman and his staff for working to bring these issues to the floor and working to bring an amenable solution and a reasonable solution to the budget process. There's no doubt in my mind as many hours have been spent looking at figures, finding out how many printers I had in the sheriff's office, Mr. Smithman, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That may put me on my diet plan quicker than I want to. But I also want to say thank you to the Board of Supervisors, because ultimately, you are the policymakers. Mr. Smithman and his team can only bring to you these facts and figures, but ultimately it's your responsibility. And I know you don't take that responsibility lightly, as you should. So having said that, we can bring up this presentation. So Seth, how does that clicker work? I don't have a whole lot of technology skills, so you're going to have to show me how that works. What do I press? Left or right?
Yes, I think so.
Don't go far. Don't go far now. Thank you. Yeah. In looking into this, and looking into the budget process, and meeting with Mr. Smithman, who was forthright with me in telling me what to expect, I see three different issues I want to talk to. We're going to be brief at this point, but I hope to really get down in the weeds with it between now and the time you actually vote. Individually, as a group, collectively, and that is my goal. What the proposal is, as I understand, is we have a 20% increase in our budget in the last few years, and we want to talk about that. And I want to talk to you all about what it takes to appeal to and attract qualified employees to work at the sheriff's office, not only the sheriff's office, but other offices here in our county. This is a big business, and we need qualified people to do our duties. And also, if those people do come here, they select to come here, raise a family here, how do we retain them? What can we do? And again, I'm not sure of how the treasurer, the commissioner, or the clerk, how their office is laid out, and I don't mean to speak for them, but I do know we all have issues about qualified people and retention. So, as I understand it, the 2018-19 budget that's been presented, we've been asked not to hire or take applications for 5 currently open county-funded positions. That's an impact, as I understand it, of $235,272, or in the overall budget, 0.001258%. That's the total county budget versus this amount of money. And the board agrees with that. Is there a negative impact that we could see because of those 5 positions? Then we took the time to compare 2008 to 2018. And as you see, in 2008, we had 108 compensation board funded positions. In 2018, we had 103. In 08, we had 24 county positions. In 18, we had 33. And you see the totals. And there's some discussion in there on how we got to that difference in the 108 and 103. And Ms. Vanderhyde, maybe you can, anytime you want to add your comments on this, those 5 were defunded by the state because of the fine imposed upon this county for the Comprehensive Act Book. They just arbitrarily took those 5 positions from the sheriff at that time. No explanation other than we've got to get our money from somewhere. So they chose our budget to take part of that. Any questions about these numbers right here? This is pretty much an informational piece, and I'm going to include all of this printout to you all in your packet that I'm going to give to you. So you will have that. But let's just talk about this, how we got to this 20% increase. It didn't happen yesterday. It didn't happen last week. It didn't happen in the last 2 years. In the mid-90s, our office applied for and received grant funding for community-oriented policing positions. The federal government saw a need that we had here, and so they provided to us 10 positions. I believe, Ms. Worley, you were here watching over us at that time. We didn't hire them all at one time. They were spaced over several years, so there wouldn't be such an impact to the budget. But that's one piece of that 2% or 20%, because the agreement was with the board and the grants folks was that once those positions were, that grant period had completely run, that those positions would be sustained by the local governing body, as many grants are. And the board at that time agreed to that, and they lived up to that pledge. And they picked those positions up, and many of those positions are still here today with us, those same original people that came to work for us. So over a period of about 3 years, 10 people were hired. Between 2008 and 2017, federal, state, and the Board of Supervisors agreed that there was a need for security in our schools. I don't think anybody would deny that there was a need for security in our schools nowadays. And because of that, we received the school resource officer grants. So that, again, that added to this 20%, because those positions, over a period of time, those grant funds expired. The board again lived up to their covenants, and they said yes, because of all this essentially free money that's been given over these last 8 years, we're going to sustain those number of school resource officers. Not out of the goodness of your heart, but because you made an agreement and you saw the need, and the previous board saw the need to keep those safety factors in place. Now, in these grants, there were hundreds of thousands of dollars that was given to this county. It was a good time. And because one of the caveats in this is because we had school resource officer grants, just a few years ago, the Virginia Attorney General called us to say, we are happy about your school resource officer program. And because of that, we're going to give you enough money to buy 5 new police cars, fully equipped, to include in-car computers and in-car cameras. None of that money came from local tax money. And it was all because we had implemented the security program in our schools. Again, part of the 20%. Now, the proposed budget shows that in a 10-year period, our office has increased $200,000 a year. That's expenses in law enforcement, corrections, civil process, and courtroom security. All of that is coupled in to that 20%. But in that 6-year period or 10-year period, about, where's Scott? Scott in here?
Yes, sir.
Scott,
301.
I'm looking for that figure.
301,030.
That's what came back to us.
Yes.
By way of reimbursements from the compensation board. So it wasn't all give. We also received. We have added 4 middle school SRAs to our budget. We've increased the 5%, Kim help me with this, the 5% from the Virginia retirement system, the mandated program. That's part of the 20%.
No, because employees pay that part now.
Not at the beginning, right?
It was 1% a year.
Right.
We picked it all up, and then now it's shifted to the employees.
I'm not going to ask you another thing. Y'all have something for her to do, Mr. Smith.
I'm sorry.
We also have an increase in medical expense. I just learned a few minutes ago that we have to, where's our jail folks? We had to air this someone out yesterday. That expense will come back to us. We have no choice in that. So those expenses are part of that 20%. So here's the projections. Total Sheriff's Office budget for law enforcement and corrections stands at $11.4 million. Out of that, you're going to get back 4.5. So if you look at that graph, you'll see what the total liability is for the county as far as law enforcement, corrections, courtroom security, and civil process. About 4%. That's not much in the scheme of things. That's not much at all. So, if you hold those 5 positions, you don't let us fund those things, it can have some negative fiscal impacts. We're going to talk about it. In about 2012, 2013, we started an inmate work program here. Ms. Gunter's here. She was the head of that program. And it was for eligible inmates to go outside of the walls of the jail. And they did a variety of things for this county. They mowed grass, they picked up trash, they stayed busy, they weren't laying in the cots. They wanted to work. They painted, they worked at the landfill, they did just a host of things for this county. They earned points that was equal to minimum wage. And that point system helped them pay off their fines when they got out of jail, so it would be a recidivism rate for non-payment of fines. It helped the inmate. It gave them some self-worth. But due to manpower shortages, we had to stop that because we didn't have enough people working in our jail because of openings that we could continue. It just wasn't safe. It wasn't safe for the people inside of the jail working to work with 2 and 3 people inside that facility. So we had to make a conscionable decision and a business decision. So we had to suspend it. From 2013 to 2016, that inmate workforce accumulated $1.9 million in minimum wage payments. That's a lot of work. We got calls constantly about, can you come down in our community and pick up trash? We'd love for them to do it. Can you come and paint in one of the offices? We're on the way. So we have to stop that program. That's a negative fiscal impact because of not having the manpower to do our job. These are the years. These are true numbers. These are numbers that have to be vetted with the court. So you can see how a negative impact on not having the manpower to do our job. Now, the proposal before you, I think, asks across the board for 10 positions in the county. 50% of those coming from the sheriff's office. I don't know if that's equitable. I'll let you all decide that. We're asked to reduce the number of our deputies when we respond to over 30,000 calls a year. However, other budgets receive additional funds and when they answer a few less calls a year. And I'm going to tell you something. There's no way that we could work with our fire and rescue. There's no way we could do it. Many times they are the performers for our backup once we get there because we know we can rely on if trouble happens there. So this is in no way a negative reflection on fire and rescue. I'm just showing you what the numbers are. So is that a good business logic? If you have 2 organizations, one running 30,000 calls for service for your constituents, one running 7,000, Is that a good business decision if you're trying to place priorities on where to put your money? It's a proven fact over and over and over again that fatigue can create a lot of problems. We read about it in our handouts through corrections, through law enforcement. We have people that are making life and death calls on the street that has worked 13 and 14 and 15 hours, and we're going to hold them responsible for making those calls. Fatigue plays a big part in this business, and it's a big part that we have to be cognizant of. Just this year, there have been 25 police officers killed, the latest yesterday. 3 this month. Across the board, corrections, law enforcement. And I was just reading an article that the Journal of Insurance says now that law enforcement and corrections enjoys 3 times more injuries than any other profession in the nation. So we have people working 13, 14 hours, and because of low pay, the next day when they're off, they're working a part-time job. It's a concern. It's a concern of mine as an administrator, and I'm just passing that information on to you so you can make the best decision possible when you're talking about these budget issues. One of the positions that are asked to be not funded is a school resource officer, and that's the officer in Chatham Middle School, who had to retire on disability at the end of December. He did not want to retire. I wish he was still there. He was a good officer. He was such a good officer that the school had an assembly for him and presented him an award. But that will be one of the positions that you'll take out of circulation. Now, we don't have the ability to backfill these other positions. We'll have to pull from the field. We may have to pull from other school resource officers because we have to answer these calls. We have to attend to the needs of the inmates in the jail. We have to attend to the 1-a-day emergency custody orders that we have to sit with. And unless it's been resolved, I see the sergeant over here. Unless it's been resolved, we've been sitting with a patient at the hospital since when, Jake?
Early morning hours, and it roughly will last till at least Thursday.
So there we go. Where do we get the manpower? So in a time when we're increasing calls for service, the number of officers being assaulted and injured answering these calls, the potential for the unmentionable happening in our schools. The proposal is to diminish law enforcement so that those deputies who are here can work longer each day for the same amount of compensation, while others are being hired throughout the complex at a higher rate of pay. Where is the equity in that? I don't see it. Now, we talk about, we'll shift gears here a little bit. Let's talk about the attainment and retention. These are some of our sister agencies right here. These are the starting salaries. You see quite a disparity. Now this board has been good to our office in the fact that last year you appropriated money for an educational benefit. And I applaud you for that, because that's performance-based. And I understand that as we go along, there will be more performance-based initiatives, which I think is a good way to go. But I applaud the county for allowing us to pay a differential in pay for, number one, working overtime, working on call, and also if they have college degrees. But that's your starting salary. When we go out and we're trying to make inroads into the community and say, please come to work for us. But what are you going to pay me? Well, we're going to pay you $32,000. That's not a good incentive when they can go to the Virginia State Police and start at 44. Or they can go to the city of Danville. Everybody look at that chart. Now, there's been some talk about, well, Mike, you've got you've got all the people you need. No, we don't. This is sworn law enforcement. And if you see the numbers, and this is right out of the Uniform Crime Report, every jurisdiction has to make these numbers. You can see we have 74 law enforcement comp board positions. That's from my number all the way down to all of us. We have 74 law enforcement positions. And you can see the disparity. Fauquier County, Danville Police, which is our neighbor, they have 124. Now, one of the things you want to keep in mind with the Danville jurisdiction, in addition to that number of 124, they're not responsible for a jail. They don't have that responsibility. So they have 124 police officers do nothing police work, whereas we have a jail here that we have to perform those duties in. I thought that was a very interesting comparison as to the number of people we have here. The 74 answer the 30,000 calls across this county. Now, you say, no big deal, Mike, no big deal, Sheriff. You know, they come and go. Fire slow, fire fast. That's not a good attitude. This is what it cost us to get to a point that we put somebody in the academy. These are all the steps that your sheriff's office has to make sure that we check off the list, and with each one of those comes a cost. So we have a person that we've got to the point that we can send him to the academy. We made the conditional offer, he's accepted. Now he is going to the academy. We've got $37,000 in that individual. When he comes back, he is a certified police officer. After he attends the academy for 22 weeks, and the Department of Criminal Justice says, you passed all the tests, you met the muster, you are now a certified police officer in the state of Virginia. That is one marketable person. We've had them leave the academy and go straight to other jurisdictions. So, there we go. We start all over again. So, how do we attract and retain this physical impact? We don't want to lose these people. If they weren't worthy of being hired, we wouldn't have hired them in the first place. But they have been. They've met all the criteria. They're good people. We don't want to lose them. But we do. Let me show you another interesting fact. And I'm pretty proud of this one right here. For the men and women in law enforcement. Group A offenses in the state of Virginia, that's the most serious. Murder, rape, robbery, burglaries, extortion. The Group B offenses, trespassing, petty larceny, those kind of things. The statistics for 2016 is that Pittsylvania County, in our county, we have 1,186 Group A offenses. If you'll drop on down to our sister agency, Danville Police, they had 4,559 Group A offenses. We enjoy the low crime rate because we are progressive. If we don't have the manpower to address crime, we're going to be in trouble. That's a no-brainer. And you can see our sister agencies around. You can see what Gretna did, what Hurt did, and what Chatham, their contributions as well. So You either pay now or you pay later. If we're progressive in stopping the drug dealers, if we're progressive in stopping the extortioners and the cybercrime people, these numbers are going to continue to be low. I just want to mention this to let you all know that your sheriff's office is a team player. Always has been, always will be, as long as I'm here. These are just some of the things we've been able to do with asset forfeiture that had not cost the local taxpayer 1 cent, other than the fact they put up some money to help us catch a drug dealer. And I think it's nobody in this room that don't want a drug dealer caught. Looked like I could get amen back there. But because of that, we have the equitable sharing, both with the federal level and the state. Now I want you to look at this. Some of the things we've done that has not cost this county a red dime in local tax money. 1.3 million. And I'm going to tell you, we could have filled up about 3 pages, but we stopped this because I knew by then y'all be tired of listening to me. I don't want an amen on that. Just to give you a quick example. Harris radios. I could not, in good conscience, come to you and say, listen, we need to address our handy-talkies, the radios that we have. I couldn't come to you and ask for $200,000. So we reached in our bank and we paid for the radio. They'll be delivered this week. I couldn't come to you and say, Mr. Barber, I know you really like me. Could you write me a check for $700,000 so I can buy an armored car? I know that look.
Amen.
But because of our partnerships and our relationships, we got that $700,000 vehicle. It's in our resources. And I'm going to tell you, when the shooting starts, that's a good place to be inside of.
Right. Amen.
When the county purchased Piedmont building, and we'd been in that building, our office had been in that building since 1993 at a great rate, I might add. You said, you got to go. You were a little bit kinder than that, of course. But the bottom line was, you got to go. We had millions of dollars of inventory that we have to secure, always secure. We had to find a place to go. We didn't come to you and say, well, what are you going to do for us? We got busy, found a place, and we bought it. And I bought that before the board, and you approved it. Not 1 dime of tax dollars was spent on that. So these are just a few things that I can talk all day long about what we've done to try to help be a team player. So, this is the best slide of the morning, of the afternoon, I guess. This is what I'm requesting. Don't take our people. I think I made a case here today. I really do.
Yes, you did.
Don't take our people. We need every person. Let me say this. A sheriff's office or a police department is never at full strength. It depends on what's going on in that community. So if you want high crime rates, get ready for me to come back to me and ask you for more people. I have to. I'm not going to be held accountable for not coming to you and telling you what our needs are. Today we have 74 law enforcement officers, 24/7. They never stop. If you'd have been here Saturday, you would have probably seen a contingent of about 9 people working overtime because we had a ceremony at the monument. I didn't come to you and talk to you about overtime, but we had to be here to keep the peace. And it was a peaceful event. Thank goodness. We have 45 corrections officers that are in our jail. that if you've never been in that jail, please come and visit. Please come and visit. It is an eye-opener. We have 11 support staff. We have 1 compensation board dispatcher that was defunded by the comp board, and the county was great in picking that position up. We're requesting that the Board of Supervisors identify means to attract and retain qualified people. I'm asking you to reinstate what I asked for at the 4% increase in salaries. I'm not shy. I'm going to ask. You can tell me no. I wish to be a little bit later. Think on that just a little bit. 4% increase in compensation, not only for the sheriff's office, but for every one of these county employees that's here today. Every one of them. They're deserving of it. I'm asking, since January of this year, we've lost 5 additional people. Sad to say, one of those that you recognize at the Board of Supervisors members meeting the other night, and gave to him the resolution. He is going to another agency. I hate to see him go. Good people, but I understand. I understand why he's doing it. And he's doing it for the right reasons, for his family. And listen, I'm going to be quiet after this. My preacher closes 3 times. I'm only going to close once out of that. As a board member, please know, our new logo, business savvy and people friendly. Isn't that it? That's our new logo. I like it. I do. I like it. As a board member, please know that not only should we be business savvy and people friendly to our economic partners, but to the existing appointees and employees that you all rely on every day this office runs. And with that, I say thank you. I appreciate your time. And we consider ourselves a part of this family. We'll always be a part of this family. We're going to do what's best for them. We have some other things that we can talk about, but my time is limited. Thank you so much for letting me talk to you.
Thank you, Reverend Cummings, Sheriff Tate. Know what you'll be doing in retirement. Next up, is there any questions for the sheriff from any of the board members? Any staff, Ms. Smith? Okay. We'll have Ms. Hammock, Commissioner of Revenue.
I was going to say, I can't follow him. Good afternoon, gentlemen. I would like to thank you for your past funding and support for the Commissioner of Revenue's office. And the concerns I have are very brief, so I will not take much of your time. And I feel like I almost need to withdraw it after my presentation. But for one, like I said, there were 3 items that I was concerned about when I got my budget. One of them was the office supply line. The adopted budget showed that I had been reduced to $2,200 for my request of $4,000. It said that the 2018 budget was $400. I'd like to just bring that to your attention. That was a mistake, okay? And we did get funded $4,000 last budget. So I kept my request in line, so I'm requesting that I can't run an office on $2,200 for office supplies. The second and third items were the computer supplies and furniture and fixtures. The line item was totally wiped out. And again, I kind of understand because we have a CIP plan, and I had gone through and I had to include those in my budget. So on the computer supplies, I had requested like $42,500, but that included $32,500 for computer replacement, and I understand that that's going to be redirections through the IT department. So basically, my response or request for computer supplies was at $10,000. On furniture and fixtures, that again was wiped out. I don't have a plan right now to utilize that, but we're always needing replacements. We can have broken chairs. Right now I'm dealing with a desk that has been repaired by maintenance and the drawer is still falling off. So again, that included CIP request, and that was security measures and office designated vehicle, which, like I said, I expected that to be cut. So basically, what I'm asking for restoration is office supplies, an additional $1,800. I will drop the computer supplies to $5,000 and furniture and fixtures for $2,000. So I'm asking for $8,800 to be restored to my budget. If you have any questions, I'm glad to put that answer.
Can you, just so we'll have that, will you send that in the form of an email or something?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Hammond from the board? Staff? Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Keep up the good work. Next is our Commonwealth Attorney, Brian Haskins.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for hearing us today. I want to say, first of all, thank you for the support you've given us. I appreciate the fact that you've not cut my budget. My staff is appreciative of that. I want to tell you some of the issues that we're dealing with in addition to the budget you've given us. Since I took office in 2014, I've had over 100%, more than 100% turnover in the attorneys in my office, because they go to Roanoke County, Commonwealth Attorney's Office, for higher pay. They go to Prince William for higher pay. They've gone to Halifax for higher pay. They've gone to Nelson County, 14,000 population Nelson County, for higher pay. Because in many respects, when the comp board says this is the floor, the board over the years has said, well, that's also the ceiling in terms of pay. We do receive a small amount of supplements, but I would say that of the $797,000 budget that I have, the overwhelming majority of that is paid by the state. It's passed through the state. We are being inundated with body-worn camera footage that takes time to review. And frankly, I can't watch it all. My staff, we can't watch all the body-worn camera footage. We don't have the time. We give it to defense attorneys because we have to. They can watch it if they have the time, but we do not have the time. We cannot do it. Because we can't work that kind of overtime. We have brought in, since 2009, when we started a program, this has been a win-win for the county. My secretarial staff volunteered to work overtime and to be paid money to do collections work for the county. That money that goes directly to the state is now diverted to the county, and since 2009 we started that program, we brought in $299,000 of revenue that goes into the general fund. I would say, general fund, to the taxpayer. That's where we are right now. I appreciate you not cutting me, and although I've had over a 100% turnover of people who all tell me they don't want to leave, but they got to start families. The one who went in private practice, the one who didn't go to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, but he still loved prosecuting, was Jim Childers. Y'all knew him. Jim had to start a family and had to go work somewhere else. Nate Griffith, my other chief deputy, started a family, had to move to Roanoke County to make better money. When I have employees that are carrying, you think, well, they're making $50,000 a year. And that's a lot of money in Pittsylvania County. Not for a lawyer who's carrying a $250,000 law school debt and having to pay that debt now, and thinking about raising a family. So in the future, when you get this budget problem solved, I won't come back to you and ask for money for my employees so I can keep them. Because it takes time to train them, and you'd much rather have an experienced attorney fighting the case where your house got burglarized against an experienced defense attorney. Now, I have listened to the sheriff's talk, and I'm going to put a plug in for him briefly. Please don't take his positions. Resource officer in particular, one thing he did not mention, and I'm going to mention, is that how many people are in our school system every day? 1 out of every 9 or 10 in the county are somewhere in one of our schools every day. The resource officers are there to help these people. They help not just keep a shooter from coming into school. They're there when a young girl comes in and says, my stepfather's sexually molesting me, I need help. and they want to have an officer who they know that they can talk to, as opposed to somebody who walks up and says, "Hi, I'm Mr. So-and-so, tell me about the fact that your father was sexually molested." That's important to have a resource officer in school for that reason. But more to that, the school system is a gossip mill, a rumor mill. Everybody knows that when you were in school. When crime goes on in the county, one of our children most likely hears about it. And you cannot imagine the amount of intelligence that we use to prosecute that comes from these resource officers, because they're in the school and they overhear somebody talking about in the cafeteria, or a student comes up and says, "I want to tell you about that burglary that happened because so-and-so in class said his uncle was involved in that and was bragging about the gun he's got and showing off in the house." These things you cannot put an economic value on. And I just urge you, as a part of public safety being the number one goal, number one issue behind this body's existence, is to protect its citizens. Not just from an active shooter coming to a school, but to protect its citizens from all the other crime that goes on around it. And we do it with 6 people. The sheriff's office has 1,100 and some Class A crimes. That's handled by 6 people in my office. We do what we can with it. Danville has a crime rate high enough, because we base our statistics. The comp board says you were entitled to X number of prosecutor positions for how many felony cases that end up being resolved. Danville's population is, I believe, lower than ours right now. Is that a fair statement? They have 10 comp board funded positions because of their crime rate. We have 6. That's the difference in the crime rate. And what you have seen in the explosion in the crime rate in Danville is not, the solution has not been to take officers away, but to flood more officers into the streets. That's why the state police has partnered with the Danville Police Department and gone into and stepping on that crime. Well, that crime doesn't all just go away. Some of it gets pushed out into our county because we do not have a border wall with Danville. We don't want a border wall with Danville, and we share criminals. We share defendants all the time. The only outsourcing that happens in crime is some of those come out of Danville to Pittsylvania County when they get run out of Danville. And the answer is not to take away officers. I just urge you on behalf of my office and as a public and as a citizen who depends upon a low crime rate in this county to have a safe place for me and my children to live. I ask you to support the sheriff's office in that endeavors, as you have fully supported me. And again, I thank you for your support for my office.
Any questions from you? I have one question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned the starting pay is it $50,000 for a starting attorney?
I believe it's either 54 or 55 in my office right now. That's a comp.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for the work you do over in your team. It's good work. Okay. We'll move on to Ms. Evelina Ross. Ms. Ross?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm kind of loud, okay? First of all, to Mr. Blackstock, sworn in the Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the Board of Directors and staff, I want to thank you for your past support, for your present support. We look forward to it for years to come. Unlike the Sheriff and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, we don't necessarily deal with crime, but our business, we think we're all family, helps to prevent some of the crimes that could come to Pittsylvania County. Because we're serving the low-income population of Pittsylvania County that could otherwise not get services they need because of various conditions. So while our businesses are a lot different, we just feel that we are in the same business because we are all about moving Pittsylvania County forward. With me is Mr. Bill Light, who's the Assistant Director of PCCA, and he's also Meals, the Elderly Program Coordinator. I think most of you know about Pittsylvania County, so I won't bother you with the history and that type thing, but I would like to throw out some numbers and thank you for the money that you have helped us with to provide the services to keep the crimes down. Our annual budget, we operate about 17 different programs, as you know, throughout the county. They are Meals on Wheels, Head Start program, weatherization, Southwest Cares, summer feeding program for kids, the tax assistance program. And as you know, while school is out, some of the kids, and even while school is in, do not get a full meal because of the financial condition. So our summer feeding program for kids operates throughout Pittsylvania County. And we do, last year we had 67 sites throughout Pittsylvania County in various areas, in schools and churches, wherever, to give them on certain occasions their breakfast, their lunch, and an afternoon snack. So we are doing that again this year. We're gearing up to have those summer sites throughout Pittsylvania County. So if you know anybody, and I'm going to do a plug, if you know of anybody that needs a summer feeding site, the time is now to get their application into us. As with every program, you have guidelines that you have to meet in time frames. So we have to have all those applications in. The other program that we feel has been a huge success throughout Pittsylvania County is our tax program. We've done taxes for the last 10 years at absolutely no cost to the citizens of the county. Last year, we prepared 1,900 taxes, absolutely free. The average refund amount to the citizen was $1,213. But the total refund that came back to the county for the federal was $2,335 about. Then we have our Head Start program. Did you know about that? Presently, we have 242 students, and I looked it up. The average cost for our Head Start to train a child all year is $7,898 per child, as compared to $11,233 for public and private, even higher. Our housing program, of course, we have Pittsylvania County, we do the weatherization service. We have folk calling us that are handicapped. We have folks calling us that can't get up, and they need for somebody to come out and help them up. So we go in, and where we can, we weatherize the whole house. We can no longer just do a roof or a window. The bylaws have changed. But we can go out and do a weatherization the whole house. So we can go in and again build a ramp or make it accessible so they can stay in their own home by building a ramp. We also collaborate, this is relatively new, with the Appalachian Power Company, Dominion Virginia Power Company, where we put in energy efficient light bulbs, energy low flow shower heads, and energy efficient faucets for 2 apartment complexes in Pittsylvania County. I got a letter just the other week. It said that their utility bill went down about $69 just for 1 month, and with the cost of utilities in there, you know, that was a big saving. Our funding sources, and we thank you for your funding sources, and I appreciate the budget. I looked at that and I said, praise the Lord.
Amen.
We could always use more, but I thank you for that. Our funding sources right now are, of course, the Pittsylvania County Community, the Community Service Block Grants, Department of Housing and Community Development, Project Discovery, City of Virginia, Education Department. But of course, those programs restrict us to services, so we have no money out of those budgets to do anything else. And when their services give out, like with Bill will tell you in a minute, he'll come to us and say, we need some supplemental money because we no longer have enough money to carry the food to the sites. According to the American Independent Alliance, there's three ways of money that we get from Pittsylvania County and everyone else. It has a direct impact on the service, it has an indirect impact, and it has an induced impact. We do all of those. But what it also says that I found interesting is for every dollar received in Pittsylvania County, that money is turned over in the community at least 7 to 10 times. And it also says that the local recirculation of revenues is 13.6. So that's business savvy and people friendly, I think. So that's where we are. Thank you for what you have done. We look forward to a continued relationship. We invite you not only to just have us as a partner with you, but also to come by, work with us, go out with our clients, see what we do, because again, while we are not fighting crime the way they are, we are helping the county stay safe. And now, Mr. Light will give you a few statistics on the senior program, which I'm going to be eligible for very shortly.
Again, we want to thank y'all for your past support and future support. I have been fortunate enough over the years to work with a program known to most people as Meals on Wheels in 4 jurisdictions, including Martinsville, Henry County, Pittsylvania County, and Danville. We're currently operating on a budget of just under $1 million to provide that service across those jurisdictions, including transportation, which we do only in Pittsylvania County, and senior centers, which we operate in all 4 jurisdictions. We leverage both federal, state, and local dollars to be spent in this area. Year to date, we have served 398 clients. I looked at that, approached 500 before the year's out. In Meals on Wheels, 85 of those are currently being served in Pittsylvania County. We've done over 37,000 meals year to date. That will be from October 1st through February the 20th. Is the last reporting date. Over 8,000 now, almost 8,500 of those meals are served in Pittsylvania County. I have 12 employees that are dedicated to Pittsylvania County. I have several sites across there. I have 2 in Pennsylvania County, one up at the Senior Center. Some of y'all may be familiar with that. I have another one over at Ringgold, at the community center there. Our transportation program operates on a budget of about $94,000. That is also federal, state, and local dollars. We've run about 12,000 miles this year. I would look for that to run closer to 40,000 before the year's out. That's used to transport people in the community who are not Medicaid eligible to dialysis and to doctor's offices in the area. I realize you've got a big crowd here today. I would be happy to go over this in detail to any one of you who would like to come up to the office sometime. Again, I want to thank you for your continued support for the savings.
One last statement. I forgot to tell you that last year we served 1,300 unduplicated clients. That means that's the first time they had been to us, in addition to the returning clients. And the other thing is that we are also in the jails because we have the Southwest Cares program. That program goes into the jail to help the inmates that are getting ready to be released, to train them on the education, to do those services that will get them ready to return to the Pittsylvania County so that they won't do any more crime. The recidivism rate. So we are in the jails with them, and so we just want to say that we're all in this together. We're all citizens of Pittsylvania County. While we might not carry guns, we're doing it to prevent other folks from being shot by the guns. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Mr. White. Is there any questions from any of the board members?
I forgot. Any questions?
Staff? Okay. Thank you for, a lot of people don't know what y'all do out there, but y'all take care of the people that fall through the law of the safety nets.
Amen.
And that's important.
Thank you.
Sometimes some of us forget those people, and they're very important. It says a lot about our society as a whole.
Thank you.
Ms. Bayless, from our electoral board, our registrar.
Good afternoon, Chairman and fellow members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all this afternoon. With me is my electoral board members. We have Brenda Arthur, who's the secretary, Sandra Gilbert, who is the chairman, and Lester Terry, who is the vice chairman. I come to you today in regards to our budget. During a recent email, I was asked to cut, as many other department heads, 5 to 10% from our budget. And the board and I sat and went line by line. And we cut $10,000 from election officials, which are those that are actually in the field, serving the public. We cut $2,000 from repairs and maintenance, which are to fix voting machines. We cut $2,000 from advertising, which is for elections and when we change precincts, which we may have to do here soon, for a total of $14,000. In addition to that, we were actually looking at cutting our postage, as well as cutting the lease to rental line if we change a precinct to a new facility, and cutting the phone line from our electoral board office for a total of $19,600. That was what we offered as a cut. The proposed budget is to cut $40,000 from our budget. I want you all to understand that in the world of elections, we are federally mandated. We have codes that we have to follow that are non-negotiables, they are non-discretionary. We have to meet those codes. So in the areas, in addition to what we had said you can cut, last year we were cut $15,000 in our part-time, which meant no staff, other than myself and my assistant. So when I need to be away from the office to train the 300 election officials that we have, or go to a annual meeting or attend a fire station meeting, we will not have the staffing to staff the office, and code says we have to be open. Printing cost. Every year since we bought paper voting machines, we have been given $20,000 to print ballots. The proposed budget cuts $5,000 from printing budgets, which means we may not be able to print enough ballots. Service contracts and maintenance. When we bought the voting machines that we have $18,000 worth of service contracts and maintenance. That is a service contract with the voting machines. It's non-negotiable. Every election there is a coding and a programming cost. Depending on the number of races and the number of candidates, we have an estimated $2,000 to $4,000 cost. So I asked for $23,000 and you all cut it back to $20,000. For the lease for the Mount Herman, so there are 4 precincts that are wanting us to move, or we are in need of moving, and I'm going to present that to you all later. But one of which we pay to rent Mount Herman Courtyard, and we pay $300 to rent that building for elections. We're proposing that we move that to a facility where we do not have to pay, but that money has already been cut. So if it's not approved to be moved, nor is it a viable facility to move it to somewhere else, we won't have the money to pay to rent that building. Postage. The code requires, we understand that you all are in a financial crisis. We understand and we're willing to work with you. But there are some areas that are not allowed to be cut. And some of those are in elections. And some of those are things like ballots and voting precincts and service contracts and maintenance. We've come to you before, we're coming to you again to ask that you not cut those funds. I will go ahead and detail an email to you all with the requirements for what we need to operate. And I'll be glad for you all to come by and talk individually or as a group more in depth with that. But I certainly appreciate your time, and I hope you all recognize that we try and stay out of the county election, the county administration side of it because of politics, because we're not in that business. We are the state office, and we're not supposed to get involved with it. But I thank you very much for your time. Do you all have any questions?
I'm looking at this budget, and the 17-18 adopted budget has postage at 0. And is that a typo in the?
I'm assuming so.
Because it goes from 0 last year to.
So what we did was we actually combined the registrar's budget with the electoral board's budget.
Okay.
So therefore, the electoral board's budget was the election side of it, where my budget was the operating budget. So you don't see that. And that's why that's not a true proposal prior to last year.
But they're combined now?
Yes.
Okay, so it goes from 0 to your request of 9, and the budget is for.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, a lot of that will be driven whether or not we have to change those precincts. If we change those precincts, you have to advertise, and then every registered voter has to receive a letter in the mail, which in turn, and I don't know how many absentee ballots we're going to have. Every ballot that's mailed is $1. That's just for postage. So that's, we're not asking for anything that we don't need to operate. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just noticed 3 items. Advertising, last year's budget was 1,000. Staff recommended keeping it the same. You wanted to go to 3,000. Travel expense was at 4,500. Staff recommended 5,000. You want to go to 8.
Mm-hmm.
Office supplies was at 2,500.
So
They kept it the same. You want to go to 6,000.
So the recommended, where you're seeing is, where it was, is not the truth, because it didn't have my budget and the electoral board's budget.
Same thing as your last response.
I'm sorry.
Same thing as your last response without the print. There wasn't, you had 2
Yes,
different
yes,
budgets.
yes.
Okay.
So like this year, it's only showing 5,500 in office supplies, but I believe we have 7. And I might not be looking at the same thing that you are. But the combined budgets are not true lines in what you may be seeing.
It's in the 18.
Correct.
In the 17, 18 adopted. Those figures are not accurate.
Correct. Correct. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing, I actually said, instead of me requesting for $9,000 in postage, that $4,000 will be sufficient based off of when those 4 precincts are moved. If those precincts are moved in this fiscal year, we won't need those funds. And the travel, I believe, is 7, is the combined total is $7,000, and we were asking for 8 for training.
Any other questions from the board? Staff? Okay, thank you. Thank y'all for the.
Thank you.
I was called and I took the liberty to grant somebody from the Fire and Rescue Association would like to speak. Now you can call me.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come before you and speak. First of all, I want to echo what the sheriff said as far as his personnel. He made the comment you rely on fire and rescue a lot. That can't go unsaid without saying these folks take care of us in fire and rescue every day. We respond to a lot of the same calls, and they carry the guns and the protection, and we beg for forgiveness from a man up above. But that being said, they look after us, and we've got their back. What I would like to speak to you a little bit about is, and I know all of you looking at me saying we're increasing your budget. I know you're not coming to complain, and I'm not, by any means. I know Mr. Warren, Mr. Blackstock, Mr. Scarce, Mr. Barber, you all have been through the meetings and the discussions and talked about fire and rescue now for years. We did a study in 2006 that said we wasn't putting enough in it, we wasn't taking care of fire and rescue. We did an additional study in 15, and Mr. Smithman and his staff has worked to try to resolve some of those issues, and it's a pretty steep hill to climb. I actually work for the city of Danville. We've got 6 fire stations, 117 employees, and our budget's over $13 million. Pittsylvania County, 688 personnel, 25 agencies, and our budget's right around $2 million. That being said, we have the same cost, we have the same equipment to purchase, we have the same things that we have to deal with as far as mandates. So they've worked on this process and to try to start working toward, as the old saying's been going, kicking the can down the road and putting it off to next year. So they've worked at that, and that being said, you all have employed a public safety coordinator, Mr. Chris Slim, and you did good. You did good. You've got a man that works with us. He sits down and looks at the needs. We formed a needs assessment committee, and we've spent 2 days and have another day and a half traveling to each fire station and rescue squad in the county, looking at the vehicles, trying to decide what the needs are, what vehicles are needed, what vehicles are not needed, as well as documenting what needs are gonna be down the road, so we can start to plan for this. And I know that's a big part of the budget process. That being said, there's a couple items in the budget recommendation as far as agreements and procedures. I would ask you all to give us the opportunity, before you vote on the budget, to sit down with Mr. Slim, put together a proposal of how to do that. We rely on 688 people that volunteer their services. And if I go out here and start trying to push agreements and mandates to them, we're gonna turn those folks away, and it's gonna be a lot harder to move forward. If we can work with Mr. Slim to come up with these policies and procedures, to get them in place, put fire and rescue along with that, and let them have a part in this, as you all talked about the last ordinance that we tried to get passed, and it kind of blew up in all of us' face. If we can just work with Mr. Slim, bring that back to the Policy and Procedures Committee for Fire and Rescue of your board, and present that, I think we can move forward. As far as the funding, by all means, we need it. By all means, we can use it. By all means, the citizens of this county can use it. One thing, I'm gonna pull a Kim Vanderhyde here. You had 7,000 calls for fire and rescue. It's actually 11,500 for the last year. That being said, I still love it. But gentlemen, if you can give us the opportunity to work with Mr. Slim and bring you back some final proposals to get, and I know we all want the cost covered, we all want it done in a timely manner. I think if you go back and look over the last 12 months, there's been a big improvement. As a matter of fact, I know it is. If you go back and look at the 90 days, there's even a better improvement. Big things are happening. They're taking place. Mr. Slim's been involved. Mr. Jim Davis back there, he's worked with us. And if you'll give us an opportunity, we can attract a lot more of these guys with honey than we can trying to shove a document down the throat and convince them that we're going to do it, rather than asking them, hey, can you get on the wagon together? I thank you.
Any questions from the committee? Just one comment. I think the board, because I'm on the Fire Rescue Committee, directed y'all to sit down with Mr. Slim.
You did.
And work out those issues, and then bring them to the committee, discuss them with staff, bring them to the committee.
And our only concern is if some of that has been included in here, and it's not exactly.
Well,
and I understand, we have to have a start. I understand that.
That's preliminary.
Okay.
I think everybody in here today needs to understand that this is a proposed budget preliminary, and we'll be that's why we're listening to each individual agency and constitutional officer today, so we can make wise decisions going forward. With that said, is it anybody else, any agency that we missed?
I wasn't going to speak to
Sure.
that, but just a little bit.
Sure, we'll give you 2 minutes.
I'm not known for speaking just a little bit. Ms. Vanderhyde was so excited when she said, "You're not speaking to that." Take that back. Mr. Chairman and board members, as I said, I wasn't planning on speaking today. There were some slight reductions in my budget, and that's not what I'm speaking toward. Actually, I hope Ms. Hammond gets what she wants, because she's been blaming me since the budget was released that I took her money. So I need to soften that relationship back up. But the reason I'm setting up is directed to Mr. Smitherman's presentation earlier of the quote-unquote low-hanging fruit of where to cut. And one of those things in there that's near and dear to my heart, as I stand here before you on behalf of my employees, I'm speaking for them now, not for me, is the proposed salary study implementation for my department. We were overlooked or not included with the salary increases that started in January. As I understand, we're in the budget now to be effective July 1, and that just caused me a little concern when that was considered, because that's all really I'm asking for on behalf of my employees. And I have a feeling this is going to be a difficult collection process, and those employees are probably going to get a few extra phone calls this year and be explained of and told how not very happy they are with us this year. But just keep that in mind, that all I'm asking for is on behalf of my employees that what's already included in the budget as far as implementing my office or integrating my office into the pay classification study remains. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Short. Any questions? Staff? Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next area of new business. Questions, comments, and discussion of the board. I'll open the floor up to not only committee members, but any board member who has questions. Well, I have a couple, but I'll hold them back. Any questions? Mr. Smithman, the legislature is still meeting in Richmond.
1 more week.
And a lot of the budget is decided in Richmond and passed down to the locality. So obviously, y'all not palm readers or future readers, so we don't know exactly what's coming from the state. But right now, with the constitutional offices and specifically the sheriff's office, there's a recommendation coming from the state for raises, specifically for the sheriff's office. Do we know?
Sheriff,
Is he back there, Sheriff?
Yes, sir.
I know John Jones lobbies hard because you know I used to work.
Bless his heart, love him to death. The last we heard, the 2% that was designated in Governor McCullough's budget starting December of 19 had been bumped to July 1, 2018. There was also some conversation that there may be a $5,000 increase in deputies' salaries. Not sure where that conversation is. And I think it all depends on the conferee meetings. That's all I can tell you right now. But there's nothing that has been voted on. There's nothing that's been decided upon. The biggest thing was with the 2% to bump back to July 1 of 18.
From 18. Coming forward to actually start a raise earlier than later.
Yes. That's the last conversation I had with Mr. Johnson.
Okay. We should know that within the next couple of weeks.
Yes. Just look for the smoke coming out of the roof.
Okay. Any other questions? Discussion? All right. Mr. Smithman, you got anything you want to add? Staff?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, we have a proposed budget. The process is, normally, and correct me if I'm wrong, the committee votes on the budget as we amend it or as it's proposed and moves to the full board. The full board will then vote on it to advertise it. And I think if we vote on it tonight to advertise it, it will be advertised Wednesday. But we don't meet Wednesday. There was some confusion. We don't come back. We vote tonight as a whole board to advertise the budget as presented. We can change the budget, but we cannot increase revenues after the advertisement.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Warren?
I changed my mind. Can I say something?
Sure.
I want to take this opportunity in particular to thank the board, the finance committee, of course, but in particular, the staff. Ms. Vanderhyde, Mr. Smithman, Mr. Hicks, Mr. Sides, Matt Rowe, all the constitutional officers, they're not our staff, but you folks for the budget process and what we've gone through this year. And I really want to thank them for the transparency and putting it out there to really educate the citizenry. I want to thank Dr. Jones and his staff from the school system and the work you all have done with the staff from the county. But I want to say this most important point is since last Monday when this proposal was put out, I've had the opportunity to be in multiple venues throughout the county and the city that encompassed folks from all 7 districts of the county. And I've gotten phone calls and I've gotten emails, but I have been amazed because I was expecting to get a lot of calls and I was expecting to get approached a lot. But it hasn't been what I expected. I have been told, and of course nobody likes taxes. I've spent my entire career educating people on how to avoid paying taxes, minimize paying taxes. So, you know, that taxes is a bad word for me. However, I've been amazed in how understanding the citizens have been and how supportive they've been in understanding the plight that this board is in right now and the situation we're in, and appreciating being good stewards. Of course, you know, some have said, you know, we're glad you're finally addressing an issue that should have been addressed a long time ago. I'm not one that ever looks back and criticizes, because those boards made decisions based on the information they had at that time and the economic conditions they were in. So I don't ever want to get into that of bashing other folks. But I just wanted you all to know that we're listening. I'm looking forward. I think Mr. Smitherman and the staff has scheduled 7 meetings out in the district to review this. Each and every one of you have made good points tonight, so certainly that has to be in consideration. And whatever we do tonight, it's still a moving thing. So, you know, don't assume whatever we say we are at tonight means it's, oh, we heard what you said and paid attention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. Any other comments from board members? Staff? Okay. I'll open the floor for motion. This is for the committee. For the record, Mr. Scarce is a member of the committee, Mr. Warren is, and myself, and Mr. Davis, who is absent.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adopt this budget proposal so we can do the public hearing.
I have a motion on the floor by Mr. Scarce. Do I have a second?
Yes, you got a second.
You got a second.
We're going to need 2 motions, one for the, and if you look at your handout, the first page is the proposed school board. We need a motion to advertise that proposal, and then a second motion to adopt or to advertise the general government.
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll amend my public hearing for both ways.
And actually, we'll have a third that night for the tax assessment itself, because we went through reassessment, so there'll actually be 3 public hearings. That one you don't have, but it'll also be advertised, and you'll be held that night. Every single day.
Okay. Everybody understand what we're doing here? All in favor, raise your right hand. 2 opposed. Motion doesn't carry because it takes 3 votes, right?
No, it's a quorum of who's here, so that recommendation is passed on to the full board. Now we'll go through the same exercise with the full board.
All right. The legislative committee, the finance committee recommends to the full board the budget as proposed to be advertised on Wednesday. Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. We're down to 6D. Recommendation and approval of proposed FY2019 budget for advertisement. Do I have a motion?
Is that both of them?
Yeah, when you do it, do both.
I got a question. Don't we vote on the school budget and the county budget to advertise separately?
We can,
That's
that's
what they
what we're
did.
gonna, that's what they did.
They did.
They just did both of them.
Yeah.
He made his motion to cover both.
But I mean, the board's gonna vote on it separately to
Correct.
advertise? That's what I always said.
Correct.
Okay.
I just want to clarify, we can still make adjustments down.
Oh, yeah. We can't go up, but we can go down.
So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Maybe do a motion just for the school board.
That's fine. We can do it separately.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we advertise as stated here for the school board 2019.
Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion made, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor of advertising the school board budget as presented, please raise your right hands. It's unanimous. Okay, general government budget. Need a motion?
So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to advertise the general fund as proposed.
County budget.
County budget, sorry.
Do we have a second?
Really, a motion from Trinity doesn't need a second, but
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of advertising this budget, and raise your right hands. All opposed? Motion carries 4-2. Having no other business to come before this meeting, I'll declare this meeting.
Before you do,
Yes, sir.
just want to make the board aware, we are starting to formulate some public information pieces. So if you take a look, there's a couple pieces that we are going to start putting out at the various eating establishments, convenience stores, things like that, where people get information. They want to make these available. What you're looking at right now is it'll be a cardstock, two-sided, that is really a high-level overview of what's in the proposed budget. Then there's also a document that Kaylin went to go grab that's still in draft form. It's about 6 pages. We boiled down the 35-page budget message to about 6 pages and making that available for everyone. And of course, we're also making available the full document to anyone that would like it. But these will also be available at each of your community meetings in your district. And we will also be passing out the final schedule for those meetings before you leave here this evening. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? If not, I'll declare the meeting adjourned.